The loss of a spouse is one of the most devastating experiences a person can go through. And in the middle of that grief, the financial world does not pause. Decisions need to be made, accounts need to be managed, income may change dramatically. And a tax situation that looked one way for decades suddenly looks completely different. We have worked with many clients through this transition, and the ones who navigate it most successfully share something in common. They had thought through at least some of this before it happened. So Spencer, preparing for the loss of a spouse is one that we can cognitively prepare for, but not emotionally prepare for. So when we think about the preparation that a client needs to make to prepare for the loss of a loved one, what are some of the things that are top of mind?
Well, really, it's awareness across multiple parties. And we say multiple parties because sometimes a surviving spouse might not be the person that needs to know all of this information just based on where he or she might be mentally. Sometimes it needs to go to children or other loved ones who will be able to help the grieving spouse. But there needs to be some sort of household financial manual where you have access to the accounts, you know where key documents like the will is, trust account, trust information is, and you've got an understanding of then how to carry on after that spouse passes away. So oftentimes it is the surviving spouse that needs to know all of these details. So if the surviving spouse knows where all of the passwords are, for instance, in working with a lot of our clients, if they use a password service like LastPass, if they just have access to that service and they can get in and see all of the passwords, they might not have managed the credit card or the bank account or the utilities or whatever it might be, but now at least they can get into all of the accounts because they've got the login information. So that's one of those key elements. Another though that we're seeing play out in some different situations is making sure that the surviving spouse or loved ones knows where the copy of the will is, or the original will is that was signed. Oftentimes that's kept at the attorney's office for ease of access and just making sure that nothing happens to it. But sometimes not. We do have clients that will say, no, I want to have this at home, but then they fail to tell, their loved ones, where that is. So a lot of different pathways here, but certainly the first thing is, how do you get into all the accounts? How do you have all of that there? And then how do you make sure that the appropriate people, again, are empowered to work on those?
Absolutely. Well, and I think we need to understand each of us comes into a marriage with different roles that we play.
Right.
And so if going in, hey, husband is really good at X, Y, or Z, and wife is really good at A, B, and C, they're not always, they're definitely going to be different.
Right.
And so if we've got one spouse who has handled all the finances in the past, the other spouse is probably going to need help in the future.
Right.
I remember hearing a story one time of a husband and wife couple who the husband every night would go and fill his wife's car up with gas. So she just always assumed that gas was in the car. And so when he passed, it was, how do I actually do this? And so there are always going to be these roles that have to be taken, that when a loved one passes away, there's going to be the emotional shock, but also just the actual day-to-day logistic shock of, I don't know how to do this.
Right.
How do I do this? So being willing and able to ask for help in those moments, rather than just to put your head down and try to get through it, is going to be really critical.
Well, and I love that you say having help, people that you can turn to, because the situation it just struck me. It happened to, my grandmother when her husband passed away. He took care of the vehicles. He was very handy. He was a high wire repairman out in California, and the accident happened at work. And so it was very sudden. He passes away. Well, he had always changed the oil for the vehicles. She didn't even know that oil needed to be changed in vehicles.
Yeah.
And so 6 months later, her car is not working, and she has no understanding why. And it's because he had done all of the maintenance on that. She just didn't have any frame of reference, and also probably hadn't been open enough with heirs about certain elements like that she just was unaware of.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about some practicality. When we think about financial decisions that we can make before a loved one passes during our lifetime. One of those is about Social Security. Mm-hmm. When we think about Social Security, those financial decisions, what do we need to consider?
Well, hopefully we've done our financial plan and we recognize when is the optimal time to take withdrawals for Social Security. So oftentimes we will defer Social Security for the higher earning spouse out to age 70, so that is protective for both spouses. So if that decision has been made, it's been put in place, then really it's just reaching out to Social Security Administration, making sure that they know that one spouse has passed away, so that part of that income potentially ceases if both spouses are, drawing Social Security, that the higher benefit then should persist there. But making sure that you understand, okay, where are those income streams going to come from? It may not even be that the surviving spouse needs to understand or remember all of these things, but working with a financial advisor, that is one of those things that if we've got everything documented and helped that client make decision on the pension election, for instance, or the Social Security election, then it's very easy for us to say, okay, you're in the midst of a grieving process. We know that it's tough to remember all of these pieces, but here's what the decision that was made. Your spouse took a pension election where you would receive 50% of the benefit at his or her passing. Mm-hmm. And so now we need to alert the firm there that indeed the spouse has passed away and that you'll be receiving 50% from then on. Right. Same thing with Social Security Administration. But oftentimes, if you're working, with our team, or hopefully other financial advisors would be doing the same thing for clients who are working elsewhere, they would be able to point to, this is what's going to happen going forward. You can expect that there's going to be a drop in the income, or there might not be. There are situations where surviving spouse has the pension and there's no haircut in the pension, and they're able to just continue to claim that. There's also situations where maybe they've claimed Social Security, but their spouse that passes away has not yet. So it's different in every situation.
Absolutely. Okay. So Spencer, we've talked about things that we can do beforehand. Let's talk about that critical period, the first 30 days. What are some of the most important practical first steps to take?
Well, I think first thing is take a deep breath and don't feel like you have to do anything major. Right. So you don't want to, change up investment portfolios in huge ways. You don't want to make huge life-changing decisions. Ideally, what you do is you maintain continuity of decision-making on kind of the profit and loss, the day-to-day income and outgo of funds. So ideally, what you're able to do is update different accounts as you have time, such that you have access to those accounts, and those accounts, the access endures. Typically, one of the things you want to make sure that you have is those copies of the death certificate that you can then present to different institutions, really before you even reach out to them, ideally. Ideally, you probably don't reach out to the credit card company or to other providers' bank account, whatever it might be, the next day after a person passes away, because they might lock you out of the account. Right. Better if you take a beat, get that copy of the death certificate there that you might receive after a week or two that a person passes away, and then kind of get your ducks in a row such that you have a sense of where this is going and how to maintain access there, what that institution will need to be able to say, okay, well, as a joint account, now it's going to be an individual account. Or it was an individual account, but it has a transfer on death designation. And so here's the 3 pieces of paperwork that we need to be able to then list you as the beneficiary, and you go forward with that.
Right. So Spencer, when should we reach out to an estate planning attorney?
Well, ideally, very quickly. The first people that you need to contact usually are those first of kin, just to let them know, obviously, a person has passed away. Contact a financial advisor, contact that estate planning attorney as quickly as possible, because as financial advisors, we'll be able to know what's going on within an account, put in any safeguards that need to be, because this is a time that fraud can happen, because you have people knowing that a person passed away and then trying to maybe represent themselves as being an heir or something like that. But the estate planning attorney as well, letting them know up front, because then they can, if they have the original will. They can begin to locate that. They can also begin to be a sounding board and be of help to say, okay, here's the process that you'll need to go through if you want to be involved in probate. Now, we have clients that say, I'd rather just pay the attorney, from the estate to take care of probate. Oftentimes, that's not a huge expense in the state of Tennessee. But if we have a loved one, let's just say we have a surviving spouse there, or we have a child that might be taking over as the executor or executrix, and does not want to work with an attorney, then at least having them as a sounding board for understanding what is the process, what do they need to make sure that they're taking, before the court. These kinds of different things can be really helpful. And it might just be an hour or two of the attorney's time, but it can save a tremendous amount of heartache and time just by, again, having that resource.
Okay, so Spencer, we've talked about the first 30 days, the first things that you need to do right after a spouse passes away. What are some of those longer term, that first year? What are the key considerations that we need to make and decisions that we need to take? Well,
the tax picture is going to change, not immediately. In that first year, you have the same filing status. So if a spouse passes away in February, obviously you've got a longer time period than if a spouse passes away in November or December. But that first year of filing, you're going to still file married filing joint, typically. Thereafter, then that's when that transition is going to be. So just be aware of that you don't have to do anything immediately, but that does give you the potential to make some decisions where, particularly if a spouse passes away early in the year and maybe the amount of income from Social Security and pension is lower, you might have more opportunity to do things like Roth conversions or distributions from certain kinds of accounts. So that is an opportunity that you want to be aware of. As the tax situation changes, you also want to begin to think about that longer term vision of how much you'll be taking out, because there may be some opportunities in there. And then finally, I'd say the beneficiary entitling updates. You will want to work with your financial advisor or your investment institution to update those accounts that you have. Doesn't need to, need to be the first month, but over time, over a few months into that first year, getting things like a joint account re-registered as an individual account, moving from, say, your spouse having owned an IRA to transitioning those resources, now then being in your name as an IRA owner. And then, of course, in all things, updating those beneficiary designations. So the beneficiary designations, particularly as resources come over, sometimes they carry even more weight. So this would be a particular situation if you and your spouse had different beneficiary designations, and now resources roll over from him or her account to yours. You've got to make the decision. Okay, am I updating the beneficiaries such that maybe they equalize across those if they were different, or do I keep them just as they have been?
Right, absolutely. Well, and I think one thing we come back to with clients, especially within those first several months after a loved one passes away, don't make any drastic changes. Right. The reality is you need to continue to allow yourself to move through this process. And if your financial plan, especially if your financial plan is in a really stable place, we don't need to make big distribution plan changes within the first few months. Allow yourself to grieve, allow yourself to move through this process. We would say that would come later. Let's go ahead and continue to reassess. Do you need to continue to take out at a distribution pace that was for two of you and now there's one of you? But we don't need to make those decisions immediately. That can be a more 6 months, a year, 3 years down the line, especially if you were in a stronger financial place where the distributions are just assisting you with some other lifestyle decisions. So as we look forward to some of those longer term financial planning pieces, what are the critical pieces of information we need to know and consider?
Well, when we think about over potentially decades, going forward, depending on when the passing away happens and the age of the surviving spouse, we need to think about income sustainability. So is the lifestyle that is ahead going to be supported by the assets and the income as they currently stand? Again, we don't need to address this in the first month or the first 6 months, even the first year necessarily, but Social Security is going to change usually. Pension income might change. The portfolio might need to be adjusted to be more conservative if there's a higher level of distribution, or it could be more aggressive if there's less distribution that's needed. also the vision that the spouse has going forward. Again, we don't need this in the first 6 months. Oftentimes, it's not even really healthy to do a lot of different things in the first 6 months. But beyond that, you might have been a person that wanted to travel more, and your spouse said, no, I don't really want to travel as much. And now you have the opportunity to travel. That might mean that you need more space for distributions in the next 5 years. So all those kinds of planning pieces to get your portfolio aligned, to get your income streams aligned with that need to be addressed at some point there, again, in that longer term time frame.
Absolutely. Okay, so Spencer, as we close out today, let's just run back through some of those. We need to make sure that we've got these things done right now.
Well, the first thing that we should probably even back up to is make sure that you've actually sat down as a couple with your financial advisor, or you've walked through the entire financial plan if you're doing it yourselves. Walk through the entire financial plan so that at least that surviving spouse has heard it one time and hopefully has some kind of relationship of trust with the existing financial advisor. Second would be making sure that both spouses have access to all of the passwords, all of the different ways to get into accounts, and that there's at least an understanding, if not how to do it right now, how you would do it, maybe even with some assist from a friend or a trusted family member to get into those accounts if your spouse did pass away. Third thing would be know where the will is. That original copy is going to be important should someone pass away. So those would be those key elements really that we'd say right now, make sure that you do up front. And then there are these other pieces that, again, over a year or over a few years time frame, you would be working through. But if you know where everything is and you know the key people and you trust them, that's a huge step ahead.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for talking us through that, Spencer. Clients, if you have questions about what to do, what next steps to take, we would love to have that conversation with you. Until next time, take care.
If you like these financial planning videos, please share it with a friend. And if you have questions, go to our website at SiriusRetirement.com. This content was provided by Retirement Planning Services. We are located in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can visit our website at SiriusRetirement.com. The information in this recording is intended for general educational and informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advisory, financial planning, legal, tax, or other professional advice based on your specific situation. Please consult with your professional advisor before taking any action based on its contents. Advisory services offered through Retirement Planning Services, LLC.